Okay.
And we've started.
And we're live.
Kind of.
Sort of.
You want to do the intro?
Sure, we can
Okay.
do that. My name is Jeremy,
I'm Yana.
and we are joined at the Unhip on our very first attempt at a live recording.
That's right.
Sorry, a video recording. What? Okay.
Now, instead of just hearing us, you can see our beautiful shining faces too.
That's right. Shining.
Or, I mean,
Definitely.
you totally don't have to.
What do you mean by shining? Am I sweating?
No. You don't have to. So if you'd rather just hear us,
Yes, this will be optional.
Just listen.
The video will be optional. Thank God. I'm sure you are thinking. But we are here to talk about a couple of different things, including the film Nightmare Alley, which we saw just a few hours ago.
Yep.
And then we had a request for us to go over our origin story, which is basically just how we met each other. Our origin story seems to indicate it's terrifically exciting for other people to watch.
Or like we're super villains now. This is how we got started.
We did not fall in a tank of science. We did not get doused in toxic chemicals.
That would have been kind of cool.
There was no vengeance. You think that we just like met in the tank that we fell into? Like we both fell into the same tank?
Been like, oh man, I've been here for 2 hours already. I'm so glad someone else fell in here.
Fancy meeting you here.
That's right.
Come here often. Anyway, I think that's the origin of the Harley Quinn. She fell in the same vat, I think. Maybe
as
not.
the Joker?
I think he like pushed her in so that they would be the same or something. I don't know. Oh God. If anyone who's super into the DC stuff watched this, they'd be like, they wouldn't watch this, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So we are gonna like get into some spoilers as we usually do.
Lots and lots.
Like,
well, for real. I mean,
emphasize that by like looking to the camera, like spoilers.
So many spoilers,
the shit
you
out
guys.
Of this movie.
Well, okay. I feel like anyone who is even remotely familiar with our podcast or what we do,
ramshackle
or with us,
the ramshackle unprofessionalism that is this podcast.
Like they know that any movie reviews we do. You should listen to them like after you've watched the movie.
We attached a front-facing screen to our camera, and I feel like I should turn it off or something because.
Why?
Because our size discrepancy is like something that I think about how it would look on camera.
Oh well, I'm hunched over too. I'm like.
I feel like Jack Kelly on It's Always Sunny is like, can we cut? I feel like was supposed to look different on camera, and I feel like I'm just like
whatever you are
towering
with,
over
honey.
you. No, it's fine. So we're going to talk about the
call.
Guillermo Del Toro movie Nightmare Alley. Heavy on spoilers. We probably aren't going to spoil it 2 seconds after mentioning the beginning of it, like last weekend. And then we're going to get into our origin story. Sadly, advanced spoiler there. No, like villain shit.
No vats of acid.
Yeah, no vats event. No vats.
Yet.
Not a single vat.
Life is, we still got time, baby. I'm just kidding.
There's
God forbid.
There's always time for one of us to have an industrial accident. That's true.
Horrifying.
We both live too lazy of lives for that.
Yeah. I agree.
Our most exciting story last week was that we drove to West Virginia. So, I mean, there could have been a vat there somewhere, but I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Nightmare Alley first. And,
instead of Moundsville, we went to Vatsville.
Vatsville.
Just vats of acid everywhere.
Oh my God. I went to Vatsville and all I got was horrifically injured in an industrial accident. Anyway.
And all I got were these chemical burns.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Vatsville.
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley.
Yes.
We watched it just a few hours ago. And my knee-jerk reaction, here's my 2 things with this movie. I actually liked it quite a bit.
Okay.
And they really, really, really did not advertise it very well. Hello, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Just flashing her little cat butthole to the camera. That's nice.
Enjoy.
Anyway, they did not do a great job of advertising this movie because I feel like the trailers heavily emphasized a lot of stuff that happened in the third act of the movie where there was like action happening and thriller stuff going on. It is, for the most part, not a thriller. It is mostly a drama about a man developing his skills at being like a carny.
Yeah.
And the movie is it's based on a book from a long time ago, and there was another movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's based on a book, and there was a movie made based off of it that was, I think, made around the same time that it was set, like the 40s, because I know it's old and black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a terrible movie watcher, and that I have not seen a lot of old movies from that time period. Oh my God, Charlie is just hamming it up for the camera. Whatever. This can only help our numbers.
Hi,
having
Charlie.
a cat on camera is only going to help our numbers.
What are you doing?
And our dog down here is getting jealous. Anyway, this movie, and I think true to the fact that it's based on an old book and was also an old movie, is very deliberately paced, and it's like.
Yeah, old movies tend to be longer.
Like I think Guillermo Del Toro was on this kick of like old Hollywood because this it just felt like an old movie.
It felt very like noir.
It's very noir, and it doesn't. I feel like if this was movie was remade by any other filmmaker, they would have inserted more like weird, shoehorned in action sequences toward the beginning or the middle.
Yeah, maybe.
But there was none of that in this movie. It was very
great.
slowly paced.
Yeah.
But it was also like.
It was interesting.
It was interesting, and it was also just like. Beautifully shot scenes of old-timey carnival shit.
Yeah.
And I could watch that all day.
I agree with you that it wasn't marketed that well because after seeing previews, I had no idea what this movie was about going in. Mm-hmm. I knew I liked Guillermo Del Toro. I knew I like pretty much all the we're
our
surrounded
are
by the
fighting
animals
each other
right
on camera. You little shits. Come on now.
I knew I liked, the actors who were in this movie.
Oh my god, the cast of this movie
is a fantastic cast.
Just
so I was down.
Second week in a row, we have a bomb ass Willem Dafoe performance in the movie.
Absolutely. But I didn't really know what it was about besides carnivals.
I feel like the marketing.
The 30s and 40s.
Yeah, old-timey carnivals. That was all the trailer was.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the dog is sniffing around the tripod.
We're both just waiting to see if the dog tries to go for the tripod.
Yeah, she's gonna knock it over for sure at some point. Hey, stop.
Boy.
Oh my god.
This was a good idea.
They have been getting along all day. All day. Stop it. Stop. Stop attacking the cat. What are you doing? Anyway, come up here. You want to get in my lap? Want to come up in my lap?
Aww.
Yeah. Come on. Just chill. Anyway, I feel like this movie kind of bombed, and I feel like part of the reason is because, the trailers were, it was all third act, the car crash, guns coming out, knives, bloody handprints.
Yeah.
And all of that is, very end of the movie, and this movie kind of reminded me of Taxi Driver in that way, in that it's the vast majority of it is not a thriller. It is a drama following this one guy.
Yeah.
And then it comes to a head at the end.
And I can see
his actions catch up to him.
Yeah, I can see how if people were expecting it to be very action packed all the way through, or weird creepy stuff happening all the way through.
I feel like if
you would be disappointed.
If you were sold on this movie by the trailer alone, you might have walked out in the first act because you were just it probably felt like there was nothing happening. Mm-hmm. But it's about. So the story of the movie is this guy. You don't really know his backstory other than it opens with him setting a body on fire in a house and burning the whole house down, and that's all you get. He doesn't say anything for the first 5-10 minutes of the movie. Yeah. You just see him wander into a carnival and get a job. He doesn't even say anything to anybody. First of all, I will say the one aspect of the initial pitch of this movie that kind of annoyed me was a movie about carnival, the gritty carnivals of the 30s and 40s. Starring Bradley Cooper. You know, how Carnies all look like Bradley Cooper. The most carny-looking man in Hollywood. That was just
You think they should have gotten someone more real-looking?
Well, my initial thought was, the way they had him made up, they had him kind of, they had him, with scruff, and he had that, so shaggy hair, hanging in his face. I was they should have got, the guy who played Enoch Thompson's brother on Boardwalk Empire. The guy that played Eli Thompson. I forget what his name is off the top of my head. He was in that new Kong movie where they were they left Vietnam and went to the island. I forget Kong Skull Island. I'm sorry that I forget his name off the top of my head, but it looked like they were trying to make up Bradley Cooper to look like that kind of actor. And I sort of get it a little bit having seen the movie because part of the tenet of this movie is that the ladies love him. He's too good looking for the
He's
carnival.
He's charming.
Right. Well, he's also handsome.
Or he learns
and
how
so
to be
he
charming.
Aspires to be more than a carny and more of a showman, and that's kind of his arc in the movie, and then that sort of tips over into maybe going a little too far, but it's it's a guy. It's basically the story of a guy learning how to harness his handsomeness in ways that become more sinister as time goes along. So did you like the movie? I feel like you didn't.
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it. agree with you that it was shot beautifully.
It looks amazing.
And of course, like, the costumes and the set work were just wonderful. It was pretty slow, but it kept my attention.
But it shows, like, it's slow, but it's also like, there's like, there's just enough like weird exciting things, like the part where the geek gets out and he has to try to find him in that amazing looking haunted house that's like all devil themed.
I thought that house is like scarier than anything we have now.
Yeah. Well, this was really back when it was like regulated.
Looking.
Like, I liked and then there was like the scene where the cops try to raid it because the first of all, I didn't know that the origin of the word geek was like a weird animalistic man at a freak show. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's someone who bites the heads off of chickens. That's literally what it is.
Oh, okay. I only know the modern context, which is like nerd, but I didn't know that a geek was someone who
biting the heads off chickens.
I'd never heard of that before. But I like the idea that is such a radical like carnival show that it's like outlawed and they have to like hide it when the cops come around.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. It's like animal cruelty and they're literally like caging people, but I'd never heard that before, and
I don't know if they necessarily like if they would like
it's not quite as
I don't know if they would actually like hold people prisoner and like keep them in cages.
Yeah,
I think they just like had a guy who was willing to do it, and he would do it,
and he probably was like a junkie.
I
or something,
think maybe not.
Who knows? We're just speculating here. Neither of us are historians. No. Put that on the record. You are a communications major, though, as we've established on this show.
That's right. Which you did not know about me.
Yeah.
Your wife.
You were in school for your master's degree when we met, and so
But you know what I have my master's in, right?
Yes, in social work, and I assumed that...
That's not right.
Yes, it is.
I'm just kidding. Yes, it is.
Anyway, that's what you were in school for when we met, and so... I just assumed that was an extension of what you had your bachelor's in. I didn't think that you had your bachelor's in something else. Hi, Charlie. How
That's
you doing?
Okay. We learn new things about one another all the time.
Like things we should have learned a long, long, long time ago.
I'm sure I told you at some point and you just forgot. It's not a big deal. I've told you a lot of things over the years.
Maybe you just didn't tell me.
Maybe.
Think about that? Let's turn off the cameras and we'll discuss this. Just kidding. Anyway, back to the movie.
Yeah.
Any additional thoughts on it? Before we get into like heavy spoilers, because I want to start talking about how like where it goes.
Okay. Yeah. No. Go ahead. Everything I want to talk about implies heavy spoilers.
Yeah. So the thing that's interesting about this movie that there was a couple points in it where it reminded me of Revival, oddly enough, because there's like the carnival show with like electricity that like dazzles the audience. There's like the guy who has like his arc of like learning a skill and it becoming more and more of like a danger to the people that he tries it out on. In this case, it's like a psychological danger more than anything else. And then it even like at one point leads to one of his patients or people that he's treated or whatever to commit like murder-suicide, which is literally what happens in Revival. Of course, in that it's all supernatural, and in this it's him trying to use his fake medium act to like provide closure to people with horrible losses, and it ends up just making things worse for them because they like hang on to their whole deal. But I was really surprised about an hour into this movie when it went away from the carnival. I thought the whole thing was about... I thought Nightmare Alley, first of all, was the name of the carnival. They still didn't really establish what that meant.
No, Willem Dafoe's character mentions it really briefly. Yeah,
and
as like a part of a carnival. I think like it's maybe one of the byways.
I thought maybe it was like he said like you find them in Nightmare Alley, talking about the people you recruit to be a geek. I assumed it was like an alley in a bad part of town where like hobos hang out. Like at the end of spoiler alert, toward the end of the movie, you see like a hobo hangout spot, and I thought like, oh, is that what a Nightmare Alley is?
That's what that's called.
Yeah, it's kind of like a like a what are those called? Like a Hooverville or something like that.
Yeah,
I could see that being the case, but it was interesting because the whole movie is about a guy who like goes to join the circus, literally runs away to join the circus, and decides he wants to become like a... What would you call the...
He passes himself off as a mind reader, essentially, and like a medium. So he does...
They used a word that I was like, this was a TV show.
Clairvoyant?
Mentalist. He called himself a mentalist.
Oh, okay.
Which is the name of that like detective show.
Yeah.
And then that was like...
But
that was like lingo in the field of... Because other people in carnivals like understood that word. But I'd never
But
heard
there are dozens and dozens of people who do this still.
Right.
Like Long
yeah.
Island Medium, Chris
Right.
Edwards, or whatever his name is.
I think now it's like known more as like an act or whatever.
Oh!
This sort of
people
seems like it's
still very much believe it.
Yeah,
People
but I mean,
very
like
much
I think
believe it.
this was before like TV and all that stuff. And I think people were more gullible, and I think it was a little bit more like a time. Like I feel like if you tried to make this story now, there would be a lot less of like people buying it. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
And I don't know, like the whole like the fact that it was set in the 40s. Well, the fact that it was set in the 40s, I think, was just like made for great like set decoration and costuming. Because an hour in, they left the carnival to go like he absconds. He runs away from the carnival basically with this girl that he falls in love with, played by Rooney Mara.
Who always wears red in this movie. Did you notice that? She's constantly wearing red. I don't know what the significance of that is.
That's just, it just feels very noir, like the lady in the red dress. Okay. Even though she was like the most innocent character in the whole movie. I did notice, okay, so her act in the carnival was being electrified. It looked really cool when she did it. But it seemed like she was wearing something under her... Did you notice that? She had some sort of... There was something with
like under
her costume.
Top?
Yeah, under her costume, which looked kind of like a bikini. It looked like there was like fur or insulator or something that was peeking out from under her top.
Oh, I think that was just lace.
Was it?
That was just lace? Like part of the...
It was very distracting. I mean,
yeah,
I
thought it was just part of the costume.
Because it was also a carnival, at first it looked like chest hair or something, and I was like, is she also like the hairy lady or something? It was weird. It was like a weird costume choice that was a little distracting.
I didn't really notice.
I mean, maybe it's because I'm looking at the cleavage part of the costume, but you know, she was wearing like the bikini in like a lot of her scenes. But he and her kind of run away together. I don't think they did a great job of establishing their like love at the beginning.
No. He's
just kind of like, she's pretty. She's like the only like pretty girl here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna like tell her I love her, and then we're gonna run away together. And he has learned how to do these like mind reading tricks from this like old alcoholic guy who then passes away from alcoholism, quote unquote. And he like takes his book of tricks and like learns how to do it himself, and then it like cuts to a couple years later, and he's like doing like swanky
He's really
nightclub
made
acts.
a career out of it. Yeah.
When it cuts to 2 years later, the first thing I noticed was like she was doing she was like going over their routine. And the camera pans over, and he's like going over it well. And the first thing I noticed was like, ooh, that's a nice house. So they did a good job of like establishing like, oh, okay, they've made it. They've hit the big time.
I thought they were living in like a hotel.
Well, yeah, but it was. If you're living in a hotel, that's like what Al Capone did. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like. Yeah, if you're living in like a suite in a hotel, it's pretty nice. But yeah.
So the basis of his act and the way that when he's first in this carnival, the way that he learns this skill, which is how the alcoholic man does it with his.
By the way, David Strathairn plays that guy. Okay, can we pause and just say this movie was like the Galaxy Brain meme, but with casting? You know the Galaxy Brain meme where it keeps going. This is me explaining memes where it keeps going down and like introducing a different idea, and the image adjoining gets more and more like crazy and out of control, and that was like my brain while watching this movie every time like a new actor that I loved came on screen, because it happened repeatedly.
Ron Perlman.
Yeah.
Toni Collette.
Yeah.
That guy. Willem Dafoe. Like everybody.
Like David Strathairn just walks out of a room and I was just like, holy shit, dude, it's Ira from A League of Their Own.
And then they topped it off with what's his name at the very end.
Yeah.
The
Richard
three-name guy. No. Richard Jenkins was fantastic at the very, very end. The final Carney that he goes to see.
I'm blanking on Tim Blake Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah. Tim Blake Nelson, in like the very last scene of the movie, shows up, and Richard Jenkins shows up. The guy from Mindhunter that was also in Fight Club was in it. The guy that was the Richard Jenkins like his like bodyguard.
Oh yeah.
He's like a great character actor.
Good.
Also, oddly enough, yesterday for Christmas, one of the things we watched was the Always Sunny in Philadelphia Christmas special, and I won't go too much into it, but there's a scene where one of the characters encounters a series of Santa Clauses, and it involves an elf who is not wearing any pants, and he's
played by a little person.
Played by a little person who is also the little person at the carnival in this movie,
with pants.
But with pants, yes. You don't see his butt in this movie, but it was funny because it was the same actor, and we watched the Always Sunny special the day before,
Yeah.
and that's from like 10 years ago. And it was the same actor. That was so funny.
So anyway, the way that he learns this skill is basically, so they have someone out in the audience who gets, like, someone who's part of the show. They collect a question, or they get like an item from one of the audience members, and they have like a code that, you know, the person signals to him to
they have,
clue him in on what the item is.
They have weird, like, if I say this sentence that just sounds like, you know, what am I holding up right now, but worded in different ways, it tells them if it's a pocket watch, if it's fancy, if it's old, if it's, you know, gold plated or whatever.
Yeah, and that kind of gives him something to
but
go
it
off
also
of.
it's that coinciding with like a really like strong, and I feel like this isn't something you even teach, but like a strong way of reading people.
Yes.
A way of picking up. I mean, you do have to be like, you know, Sherlock Holmes or something, where you're just like seeing someone and picking up on all these subtleties of their behavior.
And he has that, and he definitely like develops that.
Like there's literally a scene where somebody tries to step in and like prove him to be wrong, and he can tell she has a gun in her purse, in her clutch.
Right.
And all of that is just from his ability to like discern her entire situation.
So he's very good at it, but ultimately, you know, he's convincing people that he can read minds, or that he is like tuned into this sixth sense, when he's not. Obviously, he's just very good at this skill that he does, and he has help. He has people feeding him information. And what he starts doing is then convincing people that he can communicate with the dead. And that he can like get messages from the dead.
Right, he's doing an Oda Mae Brown thing.
Right.
From Ghost.
And throughout the movie, people are very clear to him to not do this.
Yeah,
like the guy.
Carnies.
Yeah, like the guy who originally teaches him this, and the woman he works with tell him like, no, you can't do that. In fact, she accidentally does it, like, to cover for a missed cue.
Right.
And then she talks to the woman afterwards and like debriefs her basically, and is like, listen, I was not talking to your dead husband or whatever. Like, it's a show, and she kind of smooths it over. Right.
They refer to it as a spook show. Right. And that's a bad thing. Even in this world of like, I don't know, like you know, conning or you know, playing to the crowd, and you know, like, you know, being kind of a huckster and
right. It's considered like going a step too far.
Yeah.
And then when he decides to do it, the girl that he is with, played by Rooney Mara, that he has like run away with, she tries to dissuade him from doing it, telling him very clearly that it's a bad idea.
Now I will say
he does it anyway.
There's one thing that the movie didn't really establish that well. Like, I guess when he saw what was her name? Xena. When he saw Xena do it, played by Toni Collette, fantastic as always. I guess he sort of like becomes sort of like enamored with the idea of doing that or something, because they didn't really go into why one would, or why that character suddenly wants to do this. I guess it was just money or greed or something, because he ultimately ends up being tasked with doing the medium, the spook show, for rich people, and he can make a lot of money off of it. I guess that's why. But I guess the movie does establish that he grew up poor, so he's just like chasing wealth.
I think the reason that he started it in the first place is just because he was interested in it. I think he was kind of interested in the power of being able to say the power of convincing someone so fully that you know what you're talking about, that like you can lead them, you can make them do virtually anything.
Yeah, that's true. Because the movie does establish that he grew up under the thumb of like a shitty
like
stepfather.
An abusive father or something.
It was his stepfather, right?
Was it?
Well, because he says to her he doesn't drink because his dad died of alcoholism or something when he was like 10. Oh. And then there was this other guy that came in that like raised him. That could have been him lying, I don't know. So about an hour into this movie, Cate Blanchett shows up, and she's the one he guesses that she has the gun in her purse. Yeah. And they kind of established this insane, like, it was like a weird, like, crazy, like, con artist game where she's a therapist and would defer
She has all these like high power
clients,
patients.
right? And basically like gives him information on who he's going to be doing like his spook shows on, so he can know who they lost, who they're hung up on, and that sort of thing. And they're all powerful people, and that ends up going wrong. And that whole that's like the last, I want to say, the last act of the second half of the movie. And that was where like the beginning part is kind of slow, but it's like beautifully shot carnival stuff. All the carnival stuff is interesting, but you're also, there's a little bit of you that's waiting for like an inciting incident of some kind, or you're like, okay, is somebody gonna get like murdered, or because it's very ominous. It's like filmed all noir.
Yeah, and like things are happening, but at the same time, it's like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna be like the thing? What's gonna be the point of the movie?
Right. Who's gonna like is he gonna accidentally kill somebody?
Yeah.
Is somebody gonna end up, is the geek gonna get loose and like kill Rooney Mara or something? I was like waiting for something like that to happen, and it doesn't, because it's just about establishing his like
how
developing,
he comes to be. Yeah.
Developing his skill at this carnival game. And like once I sort of realized that that's what this was doing, I felt a little more comfortable in like the slowness of it.
What was your favorite thing about this movie? What did you enjoy the most?
I mean, can I just say the cinematography? Is that I mean,
sure.
I will also say that
I mean, like, about the idea of the movie, like the themes.
I mean, I really like the idea of there's just certain even people that are in the like, in the carnival barker game have
they have a certain code.
They have boundaries about like what they will and will not manipulate about people, and like dealing with people's loved ones is one of them, which I thought was interesting, especially since they will get someone hooked on like opium and keep them in a cage, which is a little bit weird. Like, we don't do that here. There's a guy over here in a cage, but we don't do that. We don't mess with people's minds about their loved ones. Right. That was a little strange, but I did like that aspect of it. I mean, that was basically like the whole baseline story of it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just thought again, like I said, I could watch carnival shit like all day, especially old timey carnival shit. There's just something, and the way it's filmed in this movie, it just feels very like. It feels very like in place of the.
So I have a question for
like even the acting. I'm sorry, the acting. It Rooney Mara and Bradley Cooper, who were both fantastic in this movie. They felt like they had studied old movies before acting this. Like the weird softness in their voice. Like there was just something that felt like you were watching. Somebody took an actual old movie and like somehow restored it to look like a new movie. Because it's not like there was like special effects that looked. Bad. Like there was no like CGI in it or anything, except for like the electricity or whatever. But now I want to go back and watch the old movie because I'm curious as to how that plays.
So I have a question about like the very end when he goes to see Cate Blanchett, like to collect his money after all the shit goes down. And she's like trying to say that he's delusional and all these things. Like she was just bullshitting him, right?
Yeah, she turned on her recorder.
That was just like for the tape.
Yeah, she turned on her recorder.
Yeah.
So basically, what Cate Blanchett did, there's a scene.
She plays him.
Well, her first scene of the movie is she steps in. I think because she's a psychiatrist and she's like, this guy's full of shit. She steps in on one of his like fancy nightclub acts. And tries to disrupt the whole thing by proving him to be fake by getting in front of Rooney Mara and grabbing the thing, so that he can't guess it.
Not allowing her to do the verbal code. Yeah. And
he basically turns it around on her by taking off his blindfold and just like assessing her and telling her, oh, you have a gun in your clutch, and I know that it's like nickel plated and pearl handled and all this stuff. And that is the case. And in that scene, I thought, oh, she's a plant. He's bringing her.
I thought so too.
But no, and then he like continued to sort of. She went back to her table and he like stood over her and was kind of mean to her and was like, you're shallow and that's why you needed the fancy gun and all this stuff. He was just like unnecessarily mean to her. And even later, his wife. Actually, I don't think they established whether they're married or not. But Rooney Mara was like, you didn't have to go that far with her, and he's like, I had to do it to get the crowd back. Was that her entire motivation for everything that she did? That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I'm really gonna fuck with this guy.
Well, there was literally no other established reason why she would do that.
Yeah.
You don't see her character before that. You don't see that she's been wronged in any way by anybody like that. I think she's just like, well, I'm gonna ruin this guy's entire life by like.
Well, I think she saw an opportunity and seized it. He approaches her. Like after the show.
I know, but I think him doing
so,
that and then no, a
no,
guest requested to see him after the show
with her, right?
Yeah, it was the guy that was with her. Yeah,
yeah.
And I think I could see that her being the engineer behind that because she was his
yeah,
therapist. Like it seemed like she masterminded the whole thing.
I don't know.
Motivated by like the fact that she was like humiliated in front of a crowd of people at a
well, maybe.
But here's the thing: it's just it doesn't establish any other motive for that. Like she completely like upends his entire game by like pushing him to do the whole spook show thing by feeding him information, and at the end, she basically like records like pushes a confession out of him on tape because she records her entire office. That was kind of cool. I like that they had like she had that big recorder thing that like came out of her wall. That was just very like the old timey version of like cool high tech shit. Where she had the big recorder that slid out of her wall with like microphones placed all around her room. That was awesome. And then she had like the rows of I guess reels that had all the recordings on them. And yeah, that was just the only motivation I feel like they put forth for why she did that. They didn't explain how she got that big scar that she shows him. Which to me I thought looked just like a heart surgery scar or something. It didn't look like, you see somebody who's been in like a horrific like attack, or they've been like, like somebody tried to kill them or whatever. It usually looks, I feel like it wouldn't look like just this big incision down the middle of your chest like she had. That just looked like open heart surgery or something.
It was curved though.
Was it?
Yeah,
I thought it was.
Like
I thought it went like straight down her.
No, it had like a hook.
Oh, did it?
At the bottom.
I don't know. It looked like a surgery scar to me, and I was like, "What is that? What is the significance of that?" I don't know. But I mean, she was again. I mean, nobody plays like kick-ass. Nobody kicks more ass at acting like someone in an earlier time period than Cate Blanchett.
Yeah.
Like, didn't she win an Oscar for like the Aviator for playing like
Katharine Hepburn?
Katharine Hepburn. Like she's really good at playing like a dame. You know what I mean? And they also said a lot of shit like that. They use like old timey language like that, and I appreciated that because I feel like even when you're making a period piece now, movies try to like, well, we need to like modernize the slang or make it feel more modern. In this movie, it was like a lot of like old timey, like like con man speak.
What's your opinion on like people who do these sorts of acts even now?
Like the Long Island medium or whatever. I'm kind of indifferent to it. I feel like, I don't know. You think that they're actively like a negative impact on the world or anything like that?
Well, no, I'm just asking your opinion because I feel like typically there's two schools of thought. So some people, are of the mindset that like, well, yes, they're making people think that they are contacting loved ones, but the messages are always positive. It's always like, yes, your mother is always with you. She's proud of you, whatever. And so it's giving people a sense of peace. It's giving people a sense of comfort. And then other people, the other school of thought is like, okay, well maybe, but it's still a lie. Like it's still a falsehood, and you are exploiting people's desire to talk to loved ones who have passed.
I mean, I feel like at this point it's kind of like I feel like I'm indifferent to it because yes, it's an exploitation, and I sort of agree with both points. Like it's an exploitation, but also the other people are just seeking closure. But also, they're sort of like I feel like they know they're being exploited on a certain level. Like,
what do you mean?
I mean, we live in 2021. If you still think the Long Island medium isn't conning you, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I just like there's
no, but there's a lot of people who believe in that kind of stuff, and they believe that like people have a sixth sense, and again, they can talk to spirits. If you believe in that
stuff, I don't. If you believe in that stuff, I'm not here to dissuade you of that. And if you want to like participate in it, I'm just not gonna like. I don't know. I honestly don't want to deprive people of thinking that there's magic in the world. And so that is always going to come with a level of exploitation from people who are going to, see the grift there. I'd rather that than somebody who like Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil who claims to be like a medical professional who then spreads anti-vax shit or whatever. Like I'd rather someone be like a fake spiritual, like a faith healer, because those people are at least they're playing in a gray area of like whether or not something's even real. Whereas somebody like Dr. Oz, who's like, vaccines are fake, perpetuating
right.
things that are like
An active, it's something that's actively harmful,
right
for its falsehood.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like, I guess, it's your mileage may vary on how much you hate different grifters, but they're all
Right.
grifters, and one of them is
Well,
actively spreading things that are killing people, and the other one is just kind of
right.
playing on people's spirituality in a way.
I think it depends on, I don't know how much money they're taking from people, quite honestly. I think if someone is like, "Oh, yes, I'm getting a message from your late husband, and for only $10, I'll tell you what it is."
I will say
like, that's awful. That's shitty.
Yeah, that's,
you know?
It depends. It depends on the
Right.
situation.
If you're just like walking down the street and you're like, "Wait, I'm getting a message."
I will say the funny thing about this movie is that it's about how you shouldn't do X thing that is still very common now and generally pretty accepted as a practice, such that there are, reality TV stars about it, which is funny. And well, it's also kind of funny where it's like the two situations that it really portrays as him going too far with it are very like, I don't know, that woman, the woman played by Mary Steenburgen, she was going to do something terrible either way based on what we saw in the movie. Like, there's a woman, he through Cate Blanchett's psychiatrist character, he gets hooked up with this judge and his wife who lost a son in World War One, who were still feeling very grieved about it in the 40s, and he goes and visits her, the judge's wife, and makes the mistake of saying, your son is here, and he's telling me that though your grief is terrible, you will all be reunited in the afterlife. And then a few scenes later, she murders her husband and kills herself, so that they can all be reunited. And it's like a horrific scene where it's just like sweet little Mary Steenburgen pulling out a gun and shooting her husband in the head. Yeah, and I feel like that's a little bit like, that's a weird, like, I can understand people looking at something like a fake medium and being like, that's scummy exploitative behavior, but painting it as being like, as doing that level of psychological damage to people.
The point, what I read into that is this.
That was just like an extreme example
of
what
the point is, and I think this was like my favorite theme in the movie, what I was most interested in, is the fact that this young man, what he is doing, he does not have a full understanding of how people are going to react to the things that he says, and how people are going to interpret the things that he is doing. Nor does he fully understand, like, who he is dealing with. He thinks he has control over this situation where he really does not.
Right, he's playing with fire.
What he said to Mary Steenburgen's character, because that comment he made,
he just
was
tossed it off.
Right, yeah, it was just like one in a line of other things he said. He was saying things that should have been very comforting, right?
Right.
Your son knows you didn't want him to go to war. He died as a brave man. He was doing what was like valiant or whatever. He knows you love him. He knows you care. Like, he was saying all the right things.
Right.
And even, you're gonna see him again. That's not necessarily the wrong thing to say, right? Like, people say that stuff all the time when someone has died. But you'll see them again.
But he put himself in a position where those words carried a lot more power.
Right. And he didn't know this woman or how she was gonna interpret what he said.
That's true. That's a good point.
Later on, with Richard Jenkins's character, right, when he's like trying to do the seance in the snow, and you can see on his face where he's like, holy fuck, who am I dealing with?
Well, yeah.
What have I done?
Well,
like, this is gonna end badly.
In the middle of like he's like, but you're right. The whole thing is that he has worked himself into a position of having all this power with these people, and he doesn't realize that is, as with any like large amount of power, it's dangerous if you don't handle it correctly. Handle it with kid gloves. And
Would you say that with great power comes great responsibility?
Gonna ignore that and continue moving on. I'm just saying, in this case, it's not like a physical power or whatever. It's literally like a psychological power over people. And I think, now that I'm thinking about it, that might be something that Cate Blanchett, that was, I think, probably her problem with him. She's a psychiatrist.
Right. They were wielding a very similar power.
Right. I mean, but hers was earned through like a, legitimate education and study of the human mind, whereas his was all manipulation.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever like even put it together till just now, but that might have been her problem with him.
Yeah, maybe.
I will say maybe my favorite part of this movie was the sound that you made when he like dug he there's a part where he beats the shit out of a guy, and there's like a close up of him digging a tooth out of his knuckle. Oh. And this sound you made in the theater when that happened was pretty funny. You were just like, "Oh." That was hilarious.
It was really gross.
It was gnarly. Like, there's weird. I mean, it's Guillermo Del Toro, so you kind of expect there to be some violence. It's R-rated. Faces. It's R-rated, so you're like, okay, it's Pan's Labyrinth guy. Between this and Pan's Labyrinth, that dude loves himself like a caved-in face. Ugh. There's a part where the main character beats a guy to death by just punching him, and there's like a close-up of his face, and he has like no nose. It's like collapsed into his like skull. Yeah, and then later it shows him washing his hands, and in most movies it's just like them washing the blood off his hands, but it's like his knuckles are all busted, and at one point he like pulls a tooth out of one of his knuckles, and it's just like, oh my god. It's like there's just like weird little brutal like reality, like he gets grazed by a bullet at one point, and it's like his ear is like in ragged chunks on the side of his head.
So I thought that was a really interesting point in this movie, was that like, he's playing with fire there at the end.
You're inside these people's heads, and you can't play with that. And
you never know for sure, like, what's gonna happen when you do that.
I don't know why I didn't put it together at the time. That was probably her motivation for like wanting to take him down. Is that he's playing with the same. Yeah. He's doing like the huckster version of what she does. But yeah, that part was a little. I know, like his confessional in the snow where he was like, I've hurt women to make up for this, where it was kind of just like, okay, that was like a weird, it's just really easy to be like, oh, this guy is like an abuser of women or possibly a murderer of women. It sort of like takes the nuance out of it a little bit. Where
what do you mean?
Well, they didn't exactly explain what it was, but you just kind of assume the worst. When he just says, I've hurt women over the years, you just like assume the worst, that he's like maybe like a rapist or a murderer of women. And that's just a very easy target in terms of vilifying somebody, where you're just like...
Oh, I think they made him a villain even before that.
Yeah,
but he was a very threatening figure.
He was a threatening figure, and that's all they really needed to make him be, up to that point.
I thought that was a good choice that they did.
Why? I thought that was completely unnecessary.
No, I thought it was good to show exactly what I was just talking about. Bradley Cooper's character had a plan for what he was going to do. Right? For how he was going to, like, parade out this ghost, essentially.
The whole point of that scene was he thought he could control him, and he was like, as soon as you appear, I'm going to make him get on his knees and pray. And the guy was like, no, I'm going to go touch my wife. That had nothing to do with what he just confessed to.
I thought it made the situation that much kind of scarier and creepier.
Okay, they could make it, because you realize the guy's even more of like a terrifying person.
Like, this guy is really fucked up. You don't know what he's going to do.
I just like the whole, like, I've hurt women. That's just... You could have inserted any horrific detail in there, and it's just like, he's an old man who's like possibly like a rapist or murderer of women, which is just, I don't know, it was both like vague and also like just well trod ground in terms of like vilifying a character, where it's like he could have confessed to anything. He could have confessed to a number of things.
Yeah, but that made sense. Like,
what do you mean?
Because he has this, unfinished thing with, like, a woman that died, and now he
that could manifest itself in any number of ways, though.
Yeah, but it made sense that it manifested itself with other women.
I think they inserted
if you say, I had this woman die, and I felt a horrible guilt or grief or whatever,
why would that
and now I steal things, like, that doesn't connect as much.
Why would you having a horrible guilt... Here's what doesn't make sense to me. Why would you having horrible guilt with, like, the death of your lover lead you to kill more women?
I don't know.
That doesn't... I mean, obviously the mind of a killer isn't always logical, but, like, it just seemed like the guy was already super villainous and kind of unhinged at that point. Saying that just seemed like a weird, like, extra bonus, like, cherry on top. He was already, like, clearly, like, this villainous character, And I don't really know why they had to like throw that. I was like,
Well,
okay.
I mean,
when he said that, my first thought was like, yeah, I figured something like that. I don't really need him to say
agree to
it.
disagree. I did not think. Yeah, I figured.
I mean,
thought it was good.
The way he
I
was
thought it was
behaving,
good that they put it in.
the way he was behaving.
I thought it was like an extra push of like this guy's really.
I just
kind
didn't think
of
they needed
up.
that extra push, and I think the entire point of
good.
I thought the entire reason for the extra push was just to like make it so that it was like a cathartic thing for the audience when Bradley Cooper like caves his face in.
Oh, I didn't really read it that way.
That's what it kind of seemed like. It's like, okay, this guy's an old piece of shit who's like hurt women.
Yeah.
And so when he like beats him to death, you're like, yeah, but you're not really supposed to be on Bradley Cooper's side
yeah,
at that point.
No.
So it's like a weird like, who am I rooting for here? What is the
I
message?
was rooting for Rooney Mara.
Yeah.
I was really glad she got away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, ultimately, but she still
at the end.
she still participated in it. She still came in there with her like weird spook show act thing.
Yeah.
Which was weird. That was also, they didn't do a great job of explaining why she came back and did that, and then only then to like, she's like, I'm doing this, but then I'm leaving, and I'm like, why don't you leave now? Like, what do you get out of this? All he said, he like manipulated her a little bit, where he was like, people have always left me, but at this point, after 2+ years of like running a con game with him, she's not a little bit inured to his like manipulation.
Well, honey, yes, they've had 2+ years of running a con game together, but they've also been together for all that time.
But what I'm saying is that like,
this is probably the first person to ever really make her feel like special and loved in a romantic way, and those types of things are hard.
I would agree with you on that, but
of.
Then she's also like, I'm doing this, but then now I'm leaving after this. Like, so like,
I don't know, maybe she felt like she kind of owed it to him to do one last thing. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm not victim blaming.
She's not a victim.
She was a little bit of a victim.
She was a victim. She was a victim in that he didn't let a little bit. Yeah. He was like manipulating her a little bit at the beginning, but like, and he didn't let her in on the fact that he was doing these like spook show things. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that makes her a victim so much as just being sort of like oblivious.
I just mean it was a bad relationship, and we don't know all of her reasons for staying in a bad relationship.
Right,
Women
that's
stay
true.
in bad relationships.
But I'm also saying that like
time.
I'm also saying that the movie, in a movie, you need to know like the motivation behind the way people behave. Otherwise, it's just random behavior. Other than leaning on the fact that like we want them to do, the script says they need to do this, so they're going to do it.
So that's why they're doing it.
Exactly. So like her coming back. Like, when she refused to do it, I was like, okay, good. She's leaving, and now he's, like, in Dutch with this crazy person. But then she, like, comes back just to do this, and then she's like, I'm leaving after this, and I'm just like, they didn't do a great job. I'm just saying this movie has flaws. I liked it a lot, but there's, like, the flaws, a lot of them are within, you know, why were some people doing the things they were doing. But, like, that was pretty much my only beef with the movie, aside from the fact that it takes a little while for you to get into the
I thought the movie was great.
Yeah.
I mean, buckle in if you're going to watch it. Know that it takes a little while to get rolling.
Are we now addressing that? This is our first video, so I'm not sure when we're supposed to be talking to each other or talking to the camera. I'm going back and forth. I don't know what the etiquette is. What's the etiquette?
I don't know.
I'll tell you what. I bet the etiquette isn't for me to grind things to a halt by talking about what the etiquette is. That's probably the case.
That's okay.
So I'm just gonna keep looking at you because
that's
I like looking at you. Because when I look over here, I see the front-facing camera and my big stupid face and stupid body. Also, I didn't realize until right before we recorded that Yana and I were wearing like almost the exact same color.
We did not plan that.
This was not planned. We're not that cute. We're not that cutesy. I mean, people that know us know that, but like, yeah, we're not gonna be wearing like matching maroon shirts every time we do the video podcast. Anyway. Thumbs up.
It was
for me
good.
On this movie, A+, whatever you want.
I thought it was very
maybe
good.
not A+, like A. I think this is an A, and
yeah.
I think it's kind of a bummer that it bombed in theaters. But I also think that market movies a little bit more accurate to what they are. Like, let them know it's going to be like a mostly a drama, and not so much like this total thriller, because it's not that. It's.
But I feel like that happens a lot. You know, where the bill of goods that you're sold is oftentimes different.
But I mean,
from
like,
what you
it's
get.
not usually the genre that is like usually like.
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times.
And
it's pretty disappointing.
Right, and that I think that is what ultimately leads to like not doing well at box office or like in people's like perception, because people end up going in expecting one thing and like getting the other.
That's
like
I
thought Spider-Man: Far From Home looked bad, or No Way Home looked bad because of the trailers, but it still looked like, you know, a superhero action movie.
Yeah,
and. You know, this one, they marketed it almost like a horror movie. Like, it was all about the lurid, bloody parts in the trailer. And
the underbelly of Carnival.
And it's called Nightmare Alley. Like, it sounds like the title of a horror movie, and It's not scary. It's thrilling toward the end, but for the most part, it's just compelling drama. So, like, yeah, Nightmare Alley. Go see it if you can find where to see it. It bombed, so
Yeah.
I would say probably catch it on streaming when it hits that. We had to drive to the side of town to a theater that was showing one screening per day of it. So,
but once it is on the streaming,
yeah,
I highly recommend it.
Highly recommend.
It's very good. The performances were great. Moving on to other business, shall we?
Terrific segue.
Yep.
Okay, so I had a friend, a relatively new friend, request that we do our origin story on here, and I'm not really sure where to start. We met online, and that's been the podcast.
The end. Yes, we met online, like so many people now.
I feel like we sort of came in at the tail end of like when meeting online was still maybe a little bit gauche. Like it was before Tinder. It was OkCupid. We met on OkCupid.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was before like Tinder and all that stuff.
How long were you doing the online thing before you and I met?
A year.
A year.
Yeah, we're both on our second marriage. Full disclosure. And I was on OkCupid, and I got separated in 2012, July of 2012, and then I met Yana in August of 2013. Oh, I met her online. We didn't meet in person until September 1st.
Yes.
So.
Our official anniversary.
Our first date. I'm married now, so our actual anniversary is a little different. It's a little annoying whenever you're like, in 2 years we'll be celebrating. In a year and a half we'll be celebrating 10 years together.
Right.
But like when you get married, you reset the clock back to like that day that you do the bigger celebration, which is a little annoying.
So we met on OkCupid, and here's what I always tell people about online dating.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna be like, here's the lies I tell people about how we met.
No. So first of all, I had been doing online dating for like a little while, and it was successful to varying degrees, more not successful than successful, but anyway. And I distinctly remember my mom being like, but so many people meet their spouses online. She was like kind of trying to...
It's surprising that your mom was encouraging of that.
Yeah, well, I just think...
I don't picture your mom as being that tech savvy.
Yeah, well, oh, hello, my dear. She thought it was a good way for me to try to meet people, and anyway... And I remember thinking, like, yes, I know a lot of people meet someone online and it works out and it's great. I just don't think that's going to happen for me. I was wrong.
Well, I can't imagine. Alert. I honestly can't imagine. I did okay in meeting people and having, like, sort of casual relationships for a little while on OkCupid.
Yeah,
but, like,
same with me.
I can't imagine what that's like for women. I can't imagine the wave of terrible garbage men that are just constantly trying to troll for whatever.
I was lucky enough to never get a dick pic.
Like, I have no idea what it's like to be I have no idea what it's like to be a woman online in general, and I can't imagine it.
I had a couple of messages where it was very clear that the person was just running a numbers game.
You are killing me here, man.
Yeah, that's the dog. Jangling her collar.
It only just occurred to me that I was like, that's probably all they can goddamn hear on this microphone.
Sorry, that was our dog. No, I had gotten a couple of messages that was obviously just like, hi, how are you? And you could tell that he had sent the same message to like 50 women, figuring at least a handful of them are going to respond.
Yeah, they're doing the
They're just running a numbers game.
Yeah.
But... And so here's
It's like, oh, this girl responded to me. I better look at her profile now and
exactly.
See if...
Here's what I tell people about online dating. Online dating is kind of like shopping at the Salvation Army. There are some really good finds. There are some very, very good finds. But you have to dig through a lot of crap to find it.
You saying... on dating online is like shopping at the Salvation Army, and then in the back of your brain was like, you met your husband online, and then you were like, you could find some really good stuff on there.
No, but that's what I'm saying. You could find some really good stuff, it's like okay, I did. I found.
Don't patronize me. Love you.
See, that's why it works.
Back to the story.
You can find some really good finds, but you have to wade through a lot of BS to find it.
Yeah.
So we
So
started
eventually,
chatting.
hopefully you'll find somebody at some point, yes.
So we started chatting, and we sent a couple of messages back and forth, and then we were texting, and I kept leaving openings for Jer to ask me out, and he didn't. He did not ask me out.
I was terrible. I've always been terrible about making that first move. I honestly, I swear to God, if you visited, if there was like the ghost of like obliviousness past, he probably would take me back to high school where it's like, this girl's flirting with you, this girl's flirting with you, this girl's flirting with you, and I was just like completely oblivious to it because I had like self-esteem issues and was just like just assumed that nobody would actually do that, and which is pretty that's a stupid excuse when you're doing online dating, because people are only messaging you because they're interested in you romantically, but still.
So ultimately I asked him out, and we went out and we had a lovely first date, and then we continued to see each other, and that was
I think we had it. I think we had what was the sign of a good first date, which is we met for breakfast, because at the time I was working second shift, so I had to be at work at like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we met for breakfast at a diner, and Yana is Jewish, and I had some questions about that because I had never met or dated a Jewish person before, and I was curious because we live in Pennsylvania. There's not an abundance of there's not a huge Jewish population around here, and I grew up here.
Not a ton of diversity.
Yeah, even though our town does have a synagogue, which I did not realize. Mm-hmm. But one of the first things I was going to ask you was like whether you were kosher or not, and the first thing you ordered was like a giant plate of bacon. So I was like,
okay, it wasn't giant. It was a side of bacon.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was not nice for me to say. It wasn't a giant plate of bacon, but it was like you ordered a side of bacon that did not come with your meal.
Yes.
So it was like literally its own plate.
I went out of my way to get bacon.
It was enough bacon to justify its own little dish. So like that was. Sorry, I didn't mean that sounded rude. It's like okay. She bought so much bacon, dude. It was crazy. But I think it was the sign of a good date that we initially just were gonna meet at this diner and have breakfast and get to know each other for the first time, and then we went shopping at Office Max,
which was going out of business.
Yeah.
So I wanted to check out
which was
the
like
sales.
nearby, so we were just like, let's go over here, let's keep this rolling because we were having such a good time, and then we went to go see a movie at the mall, which no longer exists, and it's actually the same theater we went and saw the movie at today, and while we were waiting for the movie start time to come around, we talked about the fact that my childhood home was haunted in Missouri, and how I believed in ghosts, which is funny considering the whole thing we were just discussing.
Yeah.
And you bought $40-some worth of candles at Bath and Body
Works. Bath and Body Works.
And I was like, okay, she likes candles.
So we just vibed.
We vibed real good.
Yeah, we wound up hanging out for like half the day.
We went to go see We're the Millers, which was real fun.
Yeah, because we just enjoyed each other's company, and then we were seeing each other every other weekend for a while because we both had our kids, and it was a little while before we
each have a child from a previous marriage, so
introduced the other to the kids.
Yeah, I think that's important to wait a little bit for that.
Yeah,
but. It was very nice.
It was
a lovely date.
Yep.
I went to a Comic-Con in between our first and second date. As a throwback to our earlier episode, we reviewed a Comic-Con. It was the same one that we reviewed, and I bought her Harry Potter earrings, which is extremely dorky.
Very cute.
Extremely dorky. They were Luna Lovegood earrings, and I think the thing that told me like, okay, this could go the distance is that on our second date I gave them to her and she just put them on at the table. Like I was like, these are the dorkiest things ever. They're like these cheap little earrings, and we were on a second date. I'm not like trying to buy her like actual jewelry, but I was like, this is cute. I know she likes Harry Potter like I do. That aspect of our relationship has not really endured because reasons. So I bought her like these cute little made by somebody there, Luna Lovegood earrings, and sitting there,
tickled by them.
Sitting there at the table on our second date, she just like popped them open and stuck them, like put them on for the rest of the evening, which I thought was very sweet. And she did it without even really thinking about it. I could tell it wasn't like to impress me or whatever. She was just like, "Oh, cool earrings! I want to put them on," and it was just very sweet. And I think that was like when I knew like, okay, this girl's pretty cool. She's pretty special. So. I don't want to get too insufferable with our sweetness here. I will say this: when I see people dating and they're going, I don't know. I feel like way too many people have emphasis on like common interests. Mm-hmm. It's like they've got to be into this. They've got to like this movie. They have to be okay with, video games, or they have to be, I want a gamer girl or whatever. And I'm like, man, it is like all about like this is so generic to say, but it's like all about chemistry and vibe, like so much more so than common interests. Like you can get by with like introducing each other to interests that the other person might not have.
And I think you need to have common values.
Right, common values. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But I mean, like ultimately, you can have all the same tastes line up, all the same values line up,
and it just doesn't quite
and there's
work.
Just an awkwardness and a lack of rhythm between you. And even though this podcast can be awkward with us stepping on each other, talking and interrupting each other and whatnot, we just have like a real, I don't know, we have good vibe, we have good chemistry, and that's like something you can't really. We lucked into that because it's not really something that you can like determine through like meeting online.
I'm sorry, this is driving me crazy. It was there the whole time.
Oh.
And I'm sure no one else can see it, but I can see it, and it was driving me a little crazy.
And you couldn't wait like 5 minutes.
I'm sorry.
So we're almost done here. We're wrapping it up, I feel like.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, Iris.
Hi, Iris.
Oh, who's a beautiful pup? Who's a beautiful dog? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm all done.
I'm just gonna. Here we go.
Oh,
this is Iris.
Look at her.
The camera stopped for some reason. I'm not really sure why.
Are we just doing audio now?
No, I just didn't plug the screen in.
Oh, okay.
Because that was dying. So I think we're really just gonna we're recording again because we're at an hour, so we need to do like an outro here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our review of Nightmare Alley and our
review of our relationship.
Yes. That was us tugging on the house of cards. That is the whole reason that we're together. Thankfully, it remained intact. But anyway,
if you guys have any other questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know. If there's anything that you feel strongly about that we should review or partake in.
Do you have any opinions on us actually like getting into the realm of video? Because I'm curious as to how that's going to go over. Yes. So hit us up on Twitter at unhippod and hit us on email at joinedattheunhip@gmail.com. And this will be going up on our YouTube page that I accidentally created by setting up a Gmail account for our podcast.
So you guys can look and listen.
If you want.
Yep.
It's really up to you. Okay, you guys have yourselves a good night. And
Bye-bye.
A good week. That was terrible.
What? I always say that.
No, I stepped on you when you said that because I said a good night and a good week. As you were saying bye-bye. So we really got to get this rhythm going here. Okay. So, and let's try that again.
Okay.
All right. So you guys have yourselves... Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. All right. Now I'm distracted by the dog. All right. You guys have yourselves a good evening and a good week.
Bye-bye.